I'm Tony Waldron, and I'm running for Pike County Commissioner in the upcoming election. I've been working as a commissioner since January of 2022, when I was appointed by the courts to replace Steve Guccini, my friend and colleague, after he retired. Prior to that, I worked as an attorney here in Pike County for 42 years. Experience matters, and I want you to vote for me on November 7th, either by mail or in person. And when you look for my name on the ballot, it's listed as R. Anthony Waldron. If I'm elected as commissioner, I have specific goals for the next 4 years. The first is to establish a community hospital in the center of the county in Blooming Grove. It will benefit both the residents of our county as well as the numerous visitors that come here and support our local economy. 2, I want to work on affordable workforce housing for the community. Our workers need to be able to afford to live here where they work and not have to travel from other areas. 3, I want to improve the transportation system, the Pike County transportation system. That will require PennDOT's cooperation, but we need to bolster it so that our seniors can get where they need to go, as well as people with disabilities. And 4, I want to continue to work on the public sewer projects that are underway in both for the commercial areas at both ends of the county. That's already being planned by the municipalities, but the county can help in terms of trying to locate funding for these projects. I've also been asked what my goals would be for the first year starting in 2024, and I can identify 3 of those. One is going to be to establish the funding for this community hospital that we're already working on. And that means raising both private and government funding to support the project that Northwell and its Pennsylvania partner are going to put together. We also want to develop a site plan and a building layout for this hospital. The second goal is to manage the upcoming elections in 2024. That's a presidential election, and both at the primary and the general, there certainly are going to be challenges. Fortunately, I served as part of the Board of Elections, which is what the commissioners do, and working with both our Bureau of Elections manager, Nadine Manzoni, and the county solicitor, we were able to deal with the challenges that came up in the 2022 midterm elections. And that gives me the experience to help work through that, along with my colleagues, to make sure we have a fair and proper election. The third thing we need to do is to develop a plan to manage the monies that we are receiving from the opioid lawsuit settlements. One of those is with the distributors, one is with the manufacturers, and the third one is with Purdue Pharma, which everybody's heard about. We've already received some of that money, and it's several $100,000. But there are limitations as to how that gets spent and during a time frame that you have to spend it in. We've developed a task force, multi-group task force, to plan the best way to use that money in an effective manner for Pike County residents. I've been asked what impediments there might be to achieving the goals that I've outlined previously. And I see 2 particular areas where that can be a problem. One is sewage disposal. I mentioned the fact that there's projects in line for public sewers. But those are complex processes, both complex in terms of how they get built and how the organization that's going to run it gets created, but also how you obtain the funding to make it viable. The experience I have, as I mentioned before, representing the Westville Authority, can certainly be helpful towards working through that. And in fact, I was the one that developed the intermunicipal agreement between the various municipalities along the 3-lane corridor, if you will, to start the process of getting approval for a plan for this project. The second area is, relative to sewer, is the affordable workforce housing that I mentioned. One of the biggest obstacles to that is we don't have public sewers for the areas where that would be most appropriate to locate. But we've already looked at the idea of using alternative sewage disposal methods, including ground application. And fortunately, Pike County, while it may not have the public sewers, does have land. And so that's a way to try and overcome that obstacle. The last impediment I see is with PennDOT. I mentioned the idea of improving our Pike County transportation system. That does require their cooperation, and sometimes PennDOT can be difficult to work with. But we need to get our state and even federal, but particularly state legislatures to help us get through that process and to get PennDOT to give Pike County the attention it needs. Sometimes Pike County is a forgotten area of the state, and we need to make sure that's not the case.